Hello, welcome to another Becoming a Modern Man. We are playing Bant Infect, and we are so far 3-1 with our last match of the league coming up. We've beaten two versions of Tron, well, two of the same versions of Tron, I guess, and we have also beaten a mono-red prison deck. Our only loss coming to blue-white spirits so far. So, looking for that 4-1 in the league, ideally. This is our opening hand. It's a little bit sketchy, to be honest. We kind of need this Noble Hierarch to live for us to be able to catch this Blighted Agent, unless we can pick up a land somewhere. I decided to take a risk on it. It's a solid hand if we can get our second land. But obviously, it depends on what our opponent's playing. Our opponent has Goblin Guide, so that doesn't feel too great, although it could have helped us to find a land. Unfortunately, it didn't, and we have a Rancor on top, which isn't terribly good. I'm going to run out this Noble Hierarch and hope that it lives to the following turn. Unfortunately, it doesn't. It takes a Searing Blaze, and again, no land on top for us. We do have another Hierarch on top, so it could be worse, but things are not looking terribly good for us in a matchup which already probably isn't too great. Searing Blaze again. Puts us down to 7 with a Lava Spike, attacks us for 2, down to 5, and that's Vines of Vastwood on top. So yeah, we got very very quickly shut down here. Obviously, being mana screwed did not help, and Searing Blaze for both our Hierarchs made our life very, very difficult. So yeah, fairly rapid loss to burn here. So in terms of burn, what cards do we want? I suppose Giver Runes is in a good spot here. This is the kind of matchup we want against removal heavy decks, so protection from red is certainly very relevant against this matchup. Spellskite seems like it's not going to get much better than it does here. Obviously it's a solid blocker and can redirect damage away from our Infect guys. Path to Exile, I guess we probably want this as well. It's a way to deal with their creatures and their speedy beats. I suppose there's not a whole lot else we want. I don't think they're bringing a ton against us, most likely as this matchup's fairly favourable already. Spell Pierce potentially could be good, just more protection against burn spells, and really we want to be protecting our creatures, I guess, for the most part, so that's a potential bring-in. In terms of cards to cut, it's kind of tricky. I suppose maybe we want to cut Mutagenic Growth just because it's going to cost us life. That's certainly a potential card to cut. Probably want fewer of those, so maybe some of the Mutagenic Growth, just because the cost is going to be too high for us when our opponent's beating us down. But yeah, just generally this matchup doesn't seem terribly favourable, and there's not a lot we can do about it with our current sideboard options. So I guess we're just going to have to see how this goes. Okay, so here we are with game 2 against Burn. This is our opening hand. Again, we're a bit mana light, but it does have all the cards we would want, I suppose. We've got Giver of Runes, we've got Glistener Elf, Blighted Agent, we've got Spellskite as well. So, and 2 Might of Old Corrosa, which is a very good pump spell. So I'm just going to lead off with the Glistener Elf, pass the turn. And that's Bolt for the Glistener Elf, so we're just going to have to deal with that. I suppose we could have led off with the Giver of Runes, maybe that would have been better. But I think if our opponent just has to play Goblin Guide or something, then we potentially could have gotten quite a lot of Infect damage on turn 2. That's 2 Grim Lavamancers, which is pretty bad news. We don't draw our second land, so once again we're in a very bad position mana-wise, which isn't doing a deck any favours for sure. Eidolon is pretty bad news for us, and Grim Lavamancer is going to kill one of our Giver of Runes here. Find our second land, but unfortunately it's a Waterlogged Grove, which is going to cost us life, which we desperately need here, unfortunately. Lava Spike puts us down to 11. It decides not to attack. We're going to run out Blighted Agent. We could have run out Blighted Agent last turn, but I felt like the Spellskite was a good way to protect it. Frost Charm puts us down to 4. Activating Grim Lava Monster puts us down to 2. And yeah, that wraps things up for us. We can't actually cast any spells now thanks to Eidolon, and yeah, that wraps everything up. So yeah, fairly quick trouncing by Burn. Seems like a really bad matchup for us generally. Obviously they've just got lots of removal, which is hard for us to work around. I don't think it helped that we were mana screwed in both matchups, for sure. I think certainly it is possible for us to outrace Burn, but there's a lot of cards that make it very difficult, and they can put on a lot of pressure while also having removal up. So this is not a terribly good matchup. Searing Blaze, Searing Blood, all bad cards. Eidolon's pretty bad for us as well. Obviously, nearly all of our deck is 1 mana spells. So yeah, pretty bad matchup for us, and didn't end up going our way. So overall, we ended up going 3-2 in the league, which obviously isn't great, but it's not terrible. I think the deck performed fairly well. Giver Runes, I'm not fully sold on it in this deck. It can be pretty handy, but at the same time it doesn't really add to our game plan in general, and we have to skew our mana base quite awkwardly to fit it in. So I don't know whether it's necessarily going to be a mainstay in Infect decks. I think there's certainly some preference to just not playing it. I didn't hate it. It certainly did come in handy, but I don't know that I'm fully sold on it. Certainly skewing our mana base to fit it in is quite awkward. Also makes us more vulnerable to things like Blood Moon, etc., which doesn't seem terribly necessary. I just don't know if it adds as much value as it's sort of the problems it creates. Scale Up seemed very good. Generally, I thought that card is very good. I see that it's also not terribly good in multiples, so 3 seems probably like around the right number. But yeah, generally very good. Some of the faster wins seem to come from casting an early Scale Up on a Infect guy. But just generally the deck seems to be in a better place than it was before Modern Horizons, I think. It seems like it's certainly gained some things, but there are bad matchups out there, quite a few, so I don't know whether it's necessarily going to rise back to the top, but certainly has the potential to be a bit faster than it was before. Giver Runes is an interesting addition, but I don't know whether it's going to be a good long-term addition. It certainly skews the deck somewhat. I don't know whether you necessarily want to run 4 copies. I did sideboard it out on quite a few matchups, which obviously isn't great. So yeah, overall I thought the deck performed fairly well. I think I'd probably cut the Giver Runes and possibly just go green-blue though. I wasn't overly impressed with it, although it certainly has its uses.